number 2, Ohio State at number 13, Penn State. This is their 38th meeting. Ohio State leads the series 23-14, and Ohio State is favored in this game by 15.5 points. And I believe Penn State was ranked 10 last week.
Yeah.
And they dropped to 13 after their loss to Michigan. No, wait.
No, I'm sorry. They were 10 against Michigan, 14 after that, and then they beat Minnesota and went up to 13.
Okay, against Minnesota. Yeah. All right. So last week we talked about looking for weaknesses in Ohio State. We were looking at defense as a possible weakness, but they hadn't really faced a strong offense. So last week they played Iowa and held them to 10 points while scoring 54, even if the first half, if I remember correctly, didn't look as good. Or am I thinking of the wrong game?
I mean, Iowa had a decent first half.
They had a decent first half, yeah. But as usual, Ohio State blows it out in the second half, and they ended up 54-10. So from that perspective, they really still haven't played anybody good, although that's not far off from the Michigan-Penn State game, which was, 41-17? 41,
yeah.
But what I noticed last week against Iowa is that Ryan Day kept the first stringers in, even when they were up by 4 scores in the fourth quarter. So now, to be clear, I'm not criticizing Ryan Day for doing that, because I know our favorite Bo Schembechler used to do things like that. Harbaugh doesn't, but Ryan Day does. For whatever reason, Ryan Day is keeping those first stringers in longer than I would expect. He's risking injury on some of those key players when the game is not on the line, and that's really the big reason to pull back and not keep your first stringers in there. But my question is, does that indicate a weakness on the bench?
I don't think so. I mean, I would find it hard to believe that Ohio State has a lack of depth on their roster.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
But yeah, I guess I'm not sure why the backups weren't played as much. And admittedly, I kind of turned the game off at like a minute into the third quarter. So if they did sub in the subs, then whoops. But I'm going to give Iowa just a bit of credit here, because I thought that the defense played about as well as they could have in the first half without any help whatsoever from their offense. But I mean, Ohio State can only score so many points before a team's will to go on is just broken. So I think I said a couple of weeks ago that I'm not going to underestimate Ohio State anymore. And then I went ahead and underestimated Ohio State again. I mean it this time. I'm not going to underestimate them. Okay. I'm going to forget that CJ Stroud had 2 turnovers, one of which led to a touchdown for the second straight week. I'm going to forget that I ever said anything bad about Ohio State's defense, even though they got burned in the secondary by Toledo. I said Iowa had a chance, but that Ohio State would win. The only reason Iowa had any chance at all in this game was because of the mistakes that Stroud made in the first half. So despite that, Ohio State still won by over 40 points. So yeah, I could say like I see weaknesses, but it doesn't seem to matter. So I'm not going to say that any of these weaknesses that I see are going to lead to losses until it actually happens. And maybe that's what this week, but I doubt it.
Yeah. On the other side of the equation, we've got Penn State, our old friends, the Nittany Lions, with their flavorful jams and jellies.
Yes. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in honor of Penn State before we were on the air.
There you go. See, we care about these guys.
We do. We love you, Penn State.
But wait a minute. Oh yeah, they are their third best team, the third best team in the East Division.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
With their peanut butter and jelly. I'm sorry, we're not doing trash talk right now. That's a video for another time. If you haven't seen the trash talk videos, check them out. They're hilarious. Minnesota's defense, however, could not stop Penn State's offense, but it looks like Penn State's running game still struggled against Minnesota, looking at the stats, because they had twice as many yards in the air for essentially the same number of attempts. Now, going off what you said about Toledo burning Ohio State's secondary, does Penn State have a chance at an upset if they keep the passing game going?
I mean, sure.
All right.
Sure. So, okay, I want to throw this in there real quick before I go on. I was reading that apparently Penn State fans booed Sean Clifford when he was announced as the team's starting quarterback against Minnesota.
Really?
Yeah. So just real quick to our Penn State fans, if you took part in that, if you didn't, good on you. But if you did, come on, that's really crappy. I don't understand why football fans boo players at all, and especially players of their own team. But he also had the perfect answer against Minnesota, throwing for almost 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. So that was good for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that he's going to be able to do that against Ohio State. It's probably the best against Minnesota is probably the best that I've ever seen Penn State's offense against a competent opponent, at least what I think is a competent or thought was a competent opponent. But I mean, that's really only a week removed from, Sean Clifford's worst game ever, statistically speaking. So I guess it really just kind of depends on which Clifford shows up that week, but it also kind of depends on what Ohio State's defense is thinking that week too.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. I'm not sure if we've made it clear before or not, but like when we do our trash talk and stuff, it's not against the players, it's against the coaches, because these are kids out there playing football, playing their hardest. They love to play the game. It's the coaches that let them down. So it's the coaches, and it's the coaches, the ones that have the multi-million-dollar contracts. So we make fun of them as much as possible. Now, if this whole NIL thing gets out of hand and you've got quarterbacks and halfbacks and running backs and wide receivers making $1 million contracts off of endorsements, then yeah, we're going to start making fun of them too, because they can afford it.
Yeah. So Quinn Ewers, you better thank your lucky stars that we're not in the Big 12, because we would be ripping you up and down right now.
So the top secret team rivalry score predictor has this game reasonably close. We've got Ohio State at 35 and Penn State at 24.
Okay. Giving some love to the Penn State defense. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say something. It's like 35 points is a lot of points, but that's actually pretty good against Ohio State.
It's pretty low for Ohio State.
That is pretty low. Yeah. Ripping someone up and down, that is a real saying, right? I didn't. Okay. All right. Making sure.
Rip them up one side, down the other, rip them a new one. Yeah.
Okay. I feel you. So the reason I asked that is because if it wasn't, I would have felt like a nutcase, which makes me feel like I can maybe kind of connect with Ohio State fans right now, as sacrilegious as that sounds, being a Michigan fan. But nevertheless, I am going to take the nutcases 45-24. Boom.
Boom. All right, there we go.
Take it to the bank.